Not always the same thing, but in his case. Author of such novels as Blood Music, Forge of God, Moving Mars, Quantico. He's a long-standing friend of the museum and Hall of Fame, and he is here to talk about his friend and mine, Locus founder Charles Brown.
Thank you. It's always my pride and joy to watch my heroes being inducted in here and get what they deserve, and not quite enough because, of course, you know, their work is going to go on for centuries to come. So we got inductees here and all over, and many more to come. And the museum is just the beginning of the recognition. Early on, when the museum was just a gleam in the eyes of a few people, including Paul, I was pleased to be able to call up a number of people who I regarded as my heroes and say, hey, how'd you like to come and play? And we got about 32 of them together, and I was able to call up Sri Lanka and Los Angeles, and go down to Los Angeles and talk to people. And one of the people who instantly had to be brought aboard, of course, was Charles Brown. We all agreed, all the powers that be that were thinking about the museum said Charles has to come along. And so Charles was at the early dinners, and Charles is, I'm going to say this because I don't like doing eulogies, Charles is an amazing mix of blunt and super intelligent and sweet. And throughout my time in science fiction, Charles has always been there. And so I would go to the Locus parties in the Oakland Hills and see the house and go downstairs and look at the bookcases and wander up and talk to all the writers and the artists and fans and so on that would attend these parties. And I was astonished at all of this. As a young writer, later on as a professional writer, just watching all of this, the whole life of science fiction being chronicled by this one man. If science fiction is an institution, then Charles Brown was the chief inmate of the asylum. He really was. I mean, his enthusiasm was inexhaustible. And what's more, he liked the kind of stuff I liked. He liked the real stuff. He liked, you know, science fiction the way they used to do it. He was a big supporter and friend, and of course, longtime fan of Robert Heinlein. He knew practically everybody. He was one of the great chroniclers of the history of publishing in science fiction. I think he was one of the best journalists that publishing had. And he would collect all of these things and manage this family and kind of look critically at this family, but not too critically because he really wasn't a gossip monger. We had other talented individuals who would do that, but Charles would, except in extreme circumstances, he wouldn't really talk about the dark side of science fiction. What he wanted to do was promote and record, and he has. He has done that. And the Locus people are now doing that, continuing his legacy, and we are so proud of Charles. We are so proud of what he did. The fact is, his foundation, the foundation of Locus, is going to be part of the history of American literature for centuries to come. That's what he's put together. He has taken one of the most interesting and exciting and influential artistic and literary movements of our time, and he has brought it all together as a family in this one journal and recorded it and passed it on to the rest of us. And it's there now. The archives are there. They're online. They're gorgeous. I still save every issue of Locus I've got. You know, vast yards of loci are sitting out there. What is the plural of locus? Loci, okay, yes. As in genius loci. So Charles is still with me. I just don't really believe he's gone. You know, one of these days he will, I think, come back and interview me and do most of the talking. One of these days he'll be at the early, and this is one of my fondest memories of Charles, is when we had one of the early dinners for the Science Fiction Museum, and Paul Allen unexpectedly showed up and started to explain what he was doing, and Charles interrupted him. And I realized that, God, he's just like me. We all have a short time on this earth, and we got to get our points across. We really do. And I was just so pleased to be able to talk to Charles. He did something for me, a couple of things for me. We often would get together when I was like on a book tour or whatever, and going into Oakland. I would love to stay at the Claremont Hotel, which was the site of BayCon, 1968, the World Science Fiction Convention, where I, as a 16-year-old, met practically everybody who was anybody. you know, Ray Bradbury comes into the ice cream shop and hangs out with us. There's John W. Campbell Jr. over here, and Lynn Carter doing his adult fantasy series over here, and John Brunner walks in with his new book, Stand on Zanzibar. And all these people are there. Well, I just love the hotel for that reason. It's brought back all of these memories. And although they cleaned it up a lot and got rid of the cockroaches by 20 years later. Charles would come and we'd sit out on the veranda and reminisce and interview, and then a friend of mine would show up, my special effects master friend, Phil Tippett, would show up, and we would reminisce about Phil putting his plaster sculptures out on the deck and all that sort of stuff to sell them to passing fans. Really terrific times. One time at the Locus Mansion, Charles brought me over and says, Greg, I've got a book for you. He brought out a copy of Eon, a hardcover of Eon. He says, I want to give this to you. You're not going to keep it? I mean, you're divesting your library of my book? He says, no, you don't understand, he says. He says, take a look, open it up. And inside I open it up, and there's an inscription, a stamp on the upper corner, and it says, Bonnie Doon Road. Yeah. I go, wait a minute. And then there's a name, a signature. This was Robert Heinlein's personal copy of my book. And Charles had been given the opportunity to help disperse and arrange for the passing on of the Heinlein Library by Jimmy. Now, this was Bob's copy of my book, and he says, I thought you'd like to have this. And that was astonishing. It was very sweet. It was payback time, pay forward. Because, of course, Heinlein taught Charles, and he taught me, and he taught, I think, most of us out here, paying forward is the sweetest, the best thing to do. And that's what Charles did. So today, we are here to celebrate these geniuses, the geniuses like Doug, who have made so many of our films that I think there's at least 5 that I will watch over and over and over again. And when they double HD, I'll still buy them and watch them, because then there'll be more details you can pick out, more brilliant performances. And brilliant special effects, and chiefly most of his special effects didn't involve CGI. So, and they hold up to this day because they don't. You know, you do real animation instead of a fake TV screen. Really cool stuff. Richard Matheson just blows me away when I consider how many groundbreaking, memorable pop culture moments, really sublime moments of fear and not just fear, but you know, exaltation. When you think of What Dreams May Come or Somewhere in Time. All of these emotions filling this room, being recorded and chronicled, and it all comes in a sense out of this vast movement of ours, of imagination, fantasy, science fiction, visuals, literature. Charles Brown was there. He's still there. You're still doing the great work. So here's to Charles Brown.